welcome back. This is Firechild and Severine
and Ronnie.
and, and today we're going to be talking about the concept of the shadow self. This is a topic that I know I don't encounter too often, and when I do, it does seem like it's an uncomfortable topic for most people. So I think that Severine's done a bit more research, actual research into the topic, so I'll let her give us a bit of an explanation of what she's found.
Okay, so when we first talked about doing this one, I've never heard of it before. I've heard a lot of people say that they work with sort of light and dark aspects of themselves and things like that. I think thinking of working with parts of yourself that are considered dark is probably pretty scary for most people. And especially when you get into what working with the shadow self is actually about. One of the quotes I saw, and I can't remember who it was from, I will, post it in the description, but it says, until you make the conscious or the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Basically, for shadow self, the idea is that when you're born pretty much completely whole, who you're supposed to be. But as you are raised by your parents and you're surrounded by your peers, they influence what you consider to be
right and wrong, good and bad.
And so subconsciously, the things that you think of as bad, you kind of push away. Whether or not they actually are bad differs person to person. But you reject it based off of basically appeasing your family or appeasing other people around you. We pretty much try to deny and suppress what is considered aspects of ourselves that are disapproved.
It's like giving in to your deepest and darkest inhibitions.
Yeah. And, well, it's not even just that, because there are things, and I'll give you an example. Like, say you're a woman, and when you were born, you were a confident, outspoken woman, and your family is very conservative and sort of sees that you should be quiet, that you shouldn't really speak unless spoken to and things like that. So then you feel like you have to suppress that part of you. And typically what happens is, as you are getting older and stuff, you sort of see that as a bad thing. And so when people say, you're being really outspoken about something, you might feel like, no, I'm not. You convince yourself that you're not. You convince yourself, no, that's not true. Or if you have like anger issues and you realize anger is kind of a thing that can be really bad. And so when you do get angry or when you yell at someone and they call you out on it, you might be like, I'm not angry, I'm not yelling, but you really are and you don't realize it.
I have a little bit of experience with shadow self. I've always referred to that part of me as the dark Ronnie, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. And there's been times when dark Ronnie comes out and it does take me to a very dark place sometimes, because like I've thought about ending people's lives, like literally contemplating murder, and it's scary. Now I have locked that part of me up sometimes because it's not good. I personally don't believe the shadow self is always good for you, because like sometimes it's a part of you that is damaging, mm-hmm. I guess. And then there's other times where it's like freeing a little bit too, because around the time when I was 20, I started experimenting with trying things that deep down I always wanted to do, but because it was not considered appropriate by my family, I would not. And I found that by doing so, I felt more whole and just freer. But then that's also how the persona known as Dark Ronnie, it's very much so scary sometimes. If you hear that, we're opening a coal.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Well, I think that at least what I've been reading is not so much that you should just like let shadow self out. It's very much about getting to the root of like being conscious that that's part of you, that you have that anger that's like, I could kill somebody. So the thing that I read that really stuck with me was that it's sort of not so much like a lot of tips that I read were that you should really do a lot of journaling about if you're going to do shadow work, if you're going to do work with your dark side. And it's not so much, oh, just let it do what it wants to do. Because some things, like my example earlier about the woman who's outspoken, like that is something acceptable in certain atmospheres. But I think it's about you being able to recognize what is and what isn't. Like if you're being outspoken, are you being outspoken but in a tactful way? And I think working with shadow self, you have to get to kind of the root of, well, why do you think that's a problem? Do you think that's a problem because your parents taught you that? Do you think that's a problem because someone around you taught you that? Is it because society deems it unacceptable even though it really isn't a problem? And is there a way to work with it? Like if you have an anger with you where you've really considered like hurting someone, how do you turn that into a positive?
Well, some don't. Some would use that to imbue them with power for cursing, I imagine.
Oh yeah. Well, and nothing's wrong if you're one of those people. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that that's something I approve of. But it's you, it's your life, you do what you want. I think it'll come back to get you, but
well, then again, we are getting into personal stances here, so just keep that in mind.
Yeah, we have our own opinion about that kind of thing. I don't believe it's right to hurt someone. I did watch a very interesting video about cursing, since we're kind of on that, and that you should know how to do it, because there may come a time that you need to, like if it's a situation that you need to. And I do believe there are situations where you might not have a choice. If you've tried everything and it's like that person is still coming at you.
I'm just of that belief, and this kind of goes in with shadow self, that if you are one of those people who does light magic, if that's what you want to call it, to understand all the good, you have to know the bad too. Maybe not necessarily practice the bad, but familiarize yourself with it. So that way, because then how can you completely judge what you think is good and what's not if you don't know the bad like that?
Well, and too, I think with shadow self, if you have something in you that you've ever felt like, or you feel like you're capable of being that angry, or it comes out, most of the time with shadow self, it's something that comes out that you're completely unaware of it. Kind of like a nervous tick would be, or something like that. Like, I bite my nails subconsciously. There might be a reason that I bite my nails, but I bite my nails, and
bad nails.
But I don't know what the deep root of that is. Is it something I do when I'm nervous? Is it because I have kind of an oral fixation. I kind of like to have things in my mouth. Yeah.
I was trying to be an adult. And not go there.
But like,
But Firechild.
like I have a drink right now, and I chew on pen tips. I eat ice. Whenever I used to smoke, like, I like to have stuff.
You used to smoke?
Yeah, for a little while.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
I don't have a very addictive personality. Like, I quit cold turkey, no problem. And I definitely have always liked, I don't know, chewing or something. So gum or whatever, that's something that's a part of me. And I don't know what the deep root of that is, but there's probably something to it. And it's important to know, I feel like, if you're really, like the quote was, unconscious needs to be conscious. Otherwise, you'll do things or make decisions about yourself that you're not even completely aware of. Why did I do that?
One of the things that I've been exploring as far as my own shadow self is the concept of the concepts of truth and honesty, because it's ingrained in, well, I think most people I know that it's better to tell the truth. You should be honest with people. You shouldn't, it's bad to lie. But once you get older and you start navigating social situations, you learn that there are times when perhaps it's better to just, maybe not necessarily to lie if you can avoid it, but just to sort of keep things to yourself, because you're trying to be considerate of the feelings of another person. And if you're the type, if you have friends and you care about their feelings and you don't want to just hurt their feelings over something that's not necessarily a big deal, you'll probably keep it to yourself. And I feel that as I've gotten older and more independent, I've stopped withholding my personal truths quite as much. It has created some friction between myself and friends, but I realize that it mostly stems for me from having to suppress myself, period, for so long. There's just a lot about myself that I couldn't share growing up. So I feel like it's like you start sort of turning the faucet on, and then the faucet pops off, and then it's just a torrent, and sometimes it's kind of difficult to rein that back in. But I've been trying to work on that, because I feel that, especially if it's a situation where you feel a certain way and actually not discussing your feelings is becoming painful, I think that's when you find a way to discuss it, but in a tactful way where it won't seem like you're attacking the other person. So.
I mean, that's very much the case. And sometimes it's not even worth mentioning. Like, if it's like someone, I don't know, took the last Pop-Tart or something like that.
How dare you?
I'm like, and you were perturbed by it, it's not worth bringing in, because at the end of the day, it's a Pop-Tart,
That was the last Pop-Tart.
Well, I can honestly say that if I get angry over something like that, one thing I try to do, like, if the person's right there, I'm probably, like, at this point, not gonna say anything to them, because I can be really vicious when I get mad.
Yes, you can.
And so if I might go and tell someone how I'm feeling. Like, I typically tell Ronnie, like, whenever I'm mad, like, I tell, or Firechild, whenever I'm mad, I tell them, this is what I'm feeling. This is how mad I am, and I'm just that's my way of coping with it, and I'm not trying to be like, talk about someone behind their back or anything like that, but I mean, it's better for me to talk to them than to go and just Because usually one of them goes, well, maybe they were starving and they needed that Pop-Tart.
Well, my thing is, okay, I would not get mad if like it was a community thing. Then I have no right to get mad, because one, I'm like, I didn't pay for it. Now, if I paid for it, yeah, I would feel some type of way, but I would calmly be like, hey, I'd appreciate if you didn't eat my food. You have food. You need to eat your food.
Yeah.
Severine, quit eating Ronnie's food.
I don't have any food here.
Actually, you do.
Well, okay, if you're eating straight up fermented bean paste,
no.
I'm worried about you then, because damn.
Oh, it's delicious.
We've been like sitting on the couch just sharing it, like spooning it out.
Like it's Nutella.
Yes!
With pretzels.
It's not hummus, guys. It's not hummus.
But anyway, like I think that's really what working with shadow self is. It's not so much saying, okay, I'm just gonna let this dark part of me do what it wants, but I want to understand
like why it's there,
and is there a way to deal with that? Like if you get angry, is your way to deal with it that you need to go talk to somebody? Because you might need to go talk to somebody. Maybe you're not a talkative person, so maybe you need to go like punch a sack outside or something. Or
And if you guys have any experience with shadow self, please leave us comments below.
Yeah.
Because
how do you cope when you feel like your shadow self's trying to take control? Do you sort of find a safe place to kind of give it free reign, maybe sequester yourself? Or do you try to meditate just to make contact with that part of yourself and try to figure out, okay, what do you need to feel whole? Because from what I've done a little bit of reading on the topic, and I feel like kind of the goal of work with the shadow self is realizing that while it's a part that many of us suppress, it's a part that we need to be whole. Mm. So, just as our conscious self can feel like there are things missing, your shadow self can also feel like there are things missing. So, just trying to figure out, well, what do you need to feel whole so that we're not affecting one another.
And how do you go expressing it? Like, do you paint your red door black?
Do you listen? Do you go for a drive? That's one way, and like this is just like I'm just telling you. That's what my mom does. When my mom is mad, my mom goes out and she rides in the car. And she might be gone for like a couple hours, but she literally goes for a drive and listens to music.
See, I would have no idea where to go. I'd be like, I'd get uncomfortable. Like, where am I gonna go?
Just drive. That's the thing. She just drives.
If you end up at the beach, I mean that's.
She's done that before. She's told me I was at the beach. I just went to the beach.
I've never been to the beach by myself. I should try that one time. I bet that's an interesting experience.
I bet so too. I've never tried it either, but like that. I mean, I've heard different ways. People. Everybody's different. I mean, and you might handle it differently than we might handle it. But I think it's important to know that you can't get rid of it per se because it's a part of you.
I'm sorry, that's a word that's always found interesting. Per se. Well, guys, I think that's pretty much it for in-depth on this conversation.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we're pretty new to the topic. So if it sounds like we're not really as informed, it's
then troll us, please.
Yeah, please be like, you guys are so wrong, and this is what you need to look into. Because I'm totally happy to look into it and then revisit the topic at a later time when maybe we've done some shadow work. I think I'm gonna probably look into it and actually get a journal and kind of journal some of my experiences. But I have heard it can be very deep and painful, especially because you're having to revisit things that probably come from some sort of experience in your childhood that you're not even like fully conscious mindful of. So, we will talk to you guys in the next one.
All right. See you guys later.
Ciao. Merry part.